make television happen.
Hi everyone, welcome to the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name is Steve Reeves and I'll be your host. And we've got another great show. What we're going to do is actually an extension of last week's show, which we entitled Nerds 101. This week we're going to do Nerds 102. We're going to take it one step further and go through all kinds of information about Windows and DOS and your computer. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Our approach is looking good, Cobra.
The men and women in the National Guard and Reserve face some tough challenges when they serve. Challenges that teach them discipline, leadership, and technical skills that make them better employees. So when they need time off to serve, don't make their toughest challenge approaching you.
My hero? Isaiah Thomas. Kevin Costner. Mr. Wong.
These are teachers, and to the kids they've reached, they're heroes.
My hero? Mrs. Wooten. If I don't get through to that child, who knows, maybe no one else will.
Teachers have the power to wake up young minds, to be heroes, to make a difference. Reach for that power. Teach. Find out how by calling 1-800-45-TEACH. Be a teacher. Be a hero.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, this is the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves and I'll be your host. And like I said, we've got another great show. This ought to be another informative show. What we're going to do is, it's actually an extension of last week's show, which was Nerds 101. For people that just got new computers for Christmas or over the holidays or anytime and want to know about what's going on, how to explain like what some of this Windows lingo means. And so we're going to go into Windows and show all kinds of easier ways to do things and how to format disks and all kinds of things that people that just get their computers might not know. So before we get into that, I have a few announcements like every show. One is our hotline. Our hotline number is 587-5369. That's 587-5369. A little blurb will come up on the screen there and tell you and show you the number. And with that, you can leave us messages about what you'd like to see in future shows. If you have any questions about anything, we'll try to answer them the following week or give you a call back if you leave us your number. Or you can leave us a message on email. And our email address is ace@macaw.com. ace@macaw.com. So again, the hotline number is 587-5369, and email is ace@macaw.com. Also, our show, a lot of people every week leave a message that want to know when the show's on. Again, it's on every Monday night at 7 o'clock, like right now, it might be on right now. And also, we repeat them on Saturdays at 3 o'clock. And that's usually the show that was on the Monday before. So, and then they also repeat the show like on Tuesday nights or Tuesday mornings or Thursdays. Apparently they use it for filler too, whenever they can put it in there. So you might be channel surfing and see us on there. So, but it's always on Monday nights at 7 o'clock and always on Saturdays at 3 o'clock for sure. Another thing is we want to, we always have a computer book of the week and a magazine of the week, and we try to get software of the week. And I guess we might as well show those now. You want to show them now? Okay. I like to put the camera people on the spot here. Our book of the week, we actually have two books of the week. You want to put them over here on the side? The first one is, which has been out for a little while, it's More Internet for Dummies. And there was an Internet, there still is an Internet for Dummies, but this is More Internet for Dummies. And this explains all kinds of things about how to get into Internet through America Online and a little more of the nitty-gritty. That's actually a technical term there, of getting into Internet and how to, some of the more advanced things as far as Internet. And also, we have, this is an added bonus because we have two books of the week. The other one is called Mosaic for Dummies, which is the interface for Windows or for the Macintosh or the Sun or any Unix system to get into the World Wide Web. This is for surfing the web with Mosaic. And this actually is a pretty cool book because it actually shows how to go in and customize how your setup is, your Windows program like Netscape or whatever that you might have as an interface for Mosaic, but it also shows you how to set up and get your own home page and things, and how to set it up and what files you need to do it to and programs you need to do it. This is probably the best $20 you'll ever spend, or less if you go to like Bookstop or whatever. But both these books are great. Actually, all the Dummies books are great. And then we also have the magazines of the week. This is one that I recently found that actually is called Maximizing Windows, a practical guide to Windows. And this is got all kinds of great things about how to speed up Windows and how to customize it. And there's all kinds of little tips and tricks and little all kinds of things about how to set up icons, and it's pretty slick. This is actually it's about $5. I bought it at the bookstore. And then another one. This is going to blow away the camera probably because it's white, but it's because it probably glow. This is a pretty cool magazine. It's been out for a while, but this is this month's. It's Wired magazine. This is actually sort of for the wild computer person, and it's got all kinds of wild articles in it. But this issue this month actually it's in white as Wired on it. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it actually has it in Braille over here on the side. It actually has the word. I guess it says Wired in Braille. And but this is a pretty cool magazine. So I just like to show new fun things I picked up at bookstores and new books because I am a nerd. You know, I buy a lot of computer books, and I guess I really am a dummy most of the time, actually. Not relating to computers, but well, I guess I'm a computer dummy too sometimes. But these are I think the coolest books because I mean, there's all kinds of great things in here, tips and tricks and faster ways of doing things and all kinds of little tidbits that you might want to pick up. But I think I have every one of these books, everything from the Macintosh books, the Word, to Windows, to DOS, OS2 for dummies, Unix for dummies, and they're a good buy. So these, and there's also a series called the Idiot's Guide to Windows. Those are pretty good books too. So if idiots or dummies, no problem. You can have your own books there. I guess what we need to do is also, because we're going to probably go right into Windows. Now, what I brought this week, I brought some new things. Last week I had tons of stuff on the table, and I went through all kinds of things like ports, serial ports, parallel ports, game ports, joysticks, all the little connections, the cable connections, mice, PS2 mice, the differences between PS2 mice, bus mice, serial mice, just so people had, it was a little primer, I don't know what the right word there is, on different ports and connections for your computer. Because a lot of people, when they get the computer, there's all kinds of little ports in the back, and or connections, and they have no idea what's right and what's wrong and which one they're supposed to have and which one's for the mouse and which for the printer. And we explained all that last week. So what I brought this week are, of course, I have my notebook computer here, which is a Toshiba 1950 CT, but I have the top closed, and I just have an external keyboard hooked up, and I have an external mouse, so I can keep this closed, and I have just a regular monitor hooked up to it. It's one nice thing about notebooks. You can use them as a notebook when you open up the top, or you can connect an external monitor and keyboard and mouse to it to make it look like a regular computer. But what I have attached to it are actually one of these. I have both devices here, but only one of them's hooked up. Is a portable or parallel port. Where do we want me to put this? Over here? Oh, I'm sorry. I like to confuse the camera people as much as possible. This is a iOmega portable parallel port tape backup. I showed one last week that goes in the computer. This one actually is an external model. This plugs into your parallel port, so you can, if you don't have a printer, you can plug this cable into the parallel port, or if you do have a printer, you can plug this in, and in the back of here there's a pass-through that actually you can plug your printer into this. So you don't have to not have a printer, or if you have a printer, it's no big deal. You can plug it right into here. And there's a power, goes into here, and the on-off switch. But this is Number of reasons for this. One, it's great for notebooks, so because you might not be able to put in a regular tape drive in a notebook computer, or if you don't have a docking station. The other thing is, if you have multiple computers, you can actually take this to all your computers and plug it into the parallel port and back up all your computers. And so you can kill 2 or 3 birds with one stone with this. Again, I always tell everyone, this right here, I'm not sure what these cost right now, street price and things, but they're $200, $250, I guess, or less. This will pay for itself if you lose, you know, if you ever lost your hard drive on your computer or on a file that was really important. You back this up once a week, once a day, whatever you want to do. You can actually set this up to back up, you know, the full hard drive, or selectively back up certain files, or you can say just the modified files, whatever you might have modified since the last time you backed it up. So again, this is probably one of the best things you could ever buy is a tape drive. The other thing that I brought is, I'm going to put this on the floor here, so if I disappear here, just ignore me. Right here, this is a CD-ROM, an external CD-ROM. And this works exactly the same way. Last week I brought a CD-ROM that actually went into the front of the computer or a docking station or whatever you might have for your computer. This one actually plugs in. I can't undo it because it's plugged in right now. This one plugs into the parallel port also, and it has a pass-through on the back of here, so you can have this hooked up to your computer, and you can also hook your printer up to the back of here, so you don't have to not have a printer or disconnect a printer every time you want to use the CD-ROM. And what this does, this actually has software that's loaded on the computer, so when you start up the computer, it recognizes this as your next drive. For example, if we had a C drive as your hard drive, specified as your C drive, this would automatically become D drive. So usually your floppy is A, or A and B if you have 2 of them. Your hard drive is C, and this would become D. Most of the time, the CD-ROM it's just the next drive in sequence on your, it's A, B, C, D, or whatever. Now, what this is actually a little bit different than the one we had last time. This one actually has a little caddy, a CD caddy. And what this does, instead of just putting the CD in like you do in like a regular CD player, this one actually has a caddy, so you can put it in here, and you can keep it in here if you want. You'd have multiple caddies, or you can just have a couple of these and switch it out. And what this does, this actually fits right in here, and it actually moves itself right in there, and you close the door. Then if you want it to pop out, you just press the button down here, and it will pop right out, just like that. The other thing that's nice about this, and most CD-ROMs, is it has a little a headphone jack, and it has a volume control, so you can actually play regular music CDs on here. And almost every CD-ROM that I've ever seen that goes inside a computer, you can also do the same thing. You can either plug it into this headphone jack, and I have a brain block there for that word, I guess. Or you can plug it in if you have a sound card. You can plug your headphones or headset into the jack in the back of the sound card. Again, it does have a volume control and everything, so it's pretty neat. Now, this one that I have hooked up, it's hooked up through to the parallel port. They also make this available with a SCSI interface, which is actually kind of a nerdy term there, but it's another interface. It's usually a little bit faster than a parallel port, but this is more. Actually, it's better for people that have notebooks because everybody has a parallel port on their computer. So again, well, the other thing I have is an external keyboard, and I just have a mouse, just a Microsoft 2-button mouse, the new ergonomic type, or whatever you want to call it. Ergonomic or strange looking is more what it is. And so I guess what we got to do is go right into the show as far as explaining some of the window things. I went over a bajillion things last week and left out about a bajillion and a half. So I guess what we got to do is go through some of the things we went through last week, just a few that I know that we might have missed, and then I've got a billion other things we want to go through. One of the most used things that we go through is File Manager. And there were a lot of things that I didn't talk about because we ran out of time. We tried to smush everything we could. So this week we're going to show a little more of the things that people need to know about loading programs and how to format disks and things like that, and how to make system disks. For example, if you have Doom or something and you can't start the game, you need a system disk in order to bring up a clean system. All right, so I guess what we got to do is go to the monitor here. And well, one thing I did say last week is how to start up at the DOS prompt. I've already got it up here on the screen, but you just type in Win, W-I-N, at the C prompt, hit return or enter, and it brings up Windows. The other thing, like I said, was if you put a colon after that, it will bring up Windows without the screen that says Microsoft Windows 3.1 or 3.1 or Microsoft Windows for Workgroups. And it comes up a lot faster that way. So what I have here is the control panel screen. We'll just close this by hitting this little close button, or close button. I guess that's the easiest way to put it, close button. And what it is we want to go into the file manager. So what I have is a menu here that's opened up that's called the ACE main menu. We'll just double click on File Manager. When you double click with the button number 1 on the mouse, which is this button right here, this is button 2, this is button 1, it comes up into File Manager. Now one thing we want to do, and actually my wife told me this, she told me there's a lot of things that I forgot to say. For example, one thing that a lot of people want to know is you buy a box of discs, a lot of times they might say formatted on them, sometimes they don't. So if you need to format a disk, you bring up File Manager, you go to Disk, and you pull down and you go to Format Disk. And what it does is give you some options. It says A drive. It'll say you don't want to format your C drive. You do not want to format your hard drive. It'll tell you you can bring down A, and if you had multiple drives, it would say drive A, B, whatever. And we can hit A, and then it'll also tell you what format it is. Now, 99% of almost all floppy drives that are in most PCs sold today, the A drive is a 3.5-inch disk, 3.5-inch disk, and it's a 1.44 megabyte disk. The way you can tell that is it has 2 holes up here on top. If it has 2 holes, it's a 1.44 megabyte. If it only has 1 hole, it's a 720. That's a low-density 3.5-inch disk. This is a high-density. And to protect that, there's a little doohickey thing right here. That's a technical term there. You just close that, and now, when you open it, there's now 2 holes that you can see through, and that makes it write protected, so that you can't write to it or you can't, delete it by mistake. So what we can do is we'll close that hole again, so now there's only 1 hole open, and we'll stick that in the drive. And then the next option on the screen here under Format Disk is Label. We can give it a name like Steve, and we'll hit Steve. I know how to spell there. And then you can also make it a system disk or a quick format. Now, what the difference between format and quick format is, if you've never formatted a disk before, you want to use regular format. If you've already formatted it before and you just want to clean it off and make it like a brand new disk, you hit quick format. Then you hit OK. When you hit OK, it says formatting will erase all data from your disk. Are you sure you want to do it? You say yes. And when you do a quick format, it only takes about 10 seconds or less. If you do a full format, it depends a little bit on the computer, but it might take a minute or so. You can see it's already finished. And what it does, it asks you, says it's been format's complete. You want to format another one? We'll say no. It defaults to no. Now this disk that I just formatted is now blank and ready to go, and you can put anything you want on here, any kind of file. So what we need to put it back in there, in the A drive, and we can now copy files to that drive. Now you can see up here on the corner, up here along here, there's an A drive, an A drive, a C drive, which is the hard drive, A is the floppy, and D drive, which is the CD-ROM. So if we want to copy something to that A drive, there's multiple ways you can do it. What you can do is just pick up any file, like over the top of that one, and highlight it, and just drag it up here to the A and let go. And it automatically, it'll ask you, you sure you want to copy that? You say, you bet. That's what Y stands for, you bet. I don't know if you knew that or not. Hit yes, and it copies that one file to the A drive or to that disk. I think they're telling me I need to take a break. So Everyone stay tuned, and we'll be right back with lots of fun stuff.
What would make this 60-year-old woman reveal her breasts to someone she doesn't know? It would have to be for a very good reason, like getting a mammogram. A doctor told her the older she gets, the higher the risk of breast cancer. But early detection increases her chance of successful treatment. Getting a mammogram might just save her life, especially if you're over 50. Call the American Cancer Society. Early detection is the best protection.
When Raymond was 6, I was afraid to take him to the playground because they were doing drugs. When he was 10, I couldn't let him play ball in the schoolyard because of the gangs. When he was 15, I wouldn't let him go to any dances because there could be a fight or a shooting. Now he's a man, and I realize he's never been a kid.
Give your children back their childhood. Do something now. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT. Together, we will take a bite out of crime.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, this is the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves, and I'll be your host tonight. And we've got a great show, actually an informative show. We're talking more about Windows. It's entitled Nerds 102. We did a show last week, was sort of an introduction show, and this one we're taking it one step further, and I guess we'll have to have a 103 and a 104 and all kinds of fun shows. So what we were actually doing before we left was we're getting into File Manager, but before I do that, I want to make sure everybody knows the phone number is 587-5369, 587-5369. That's our hotline. And a lot of people have been leaving messages on there and suggestions for future shows and things like that. And you can do that, or if you have a question, we'll try to answer it, or leave a phone number, and we'll try to give you a call back and answer it that way. Or you can leave us a message on email, and our email address is ace@macaw.com, ace@macaw.com, and you can leave us an email message on there, and we'll try to answer that. James DiMaggio, one of our other hosts, he pretty much answers all those, or gets those and then gives them to me, or distributes between the different hosts to answer different questions. And also, for people that might have just tuned in, our shows are always on Monday nights at 7 o'clock, and also repeated on Saturday afternoons at 3 o'clock, and then various other times that we're not real sure about because they repeat it all, to fill in time, I guess. And we had 2 books of the week, Mosaic for Dummies. I'll just hold it up here. And we also had More Internet for Dummies. And we had The Wired magazine, which is a pretty cool magazine. And then this one here, which is Maximize. It's called Maximize. It's the Practical Guide to Windows. And apparently this is going to come out every month, but it's, I don't know, this is the premiere issue or what, but it's from the same people that make DOS World, the one that has like DOS tips and tricks. And this, now they have a Windows version. So, again, the phone number is 587-5369 if you want to leave us any messages or for whatever you want to leave a message for. Having to do with computers, by the way. And I guess what we got to do is go back to the computer screen, or monitor, computer screen. And what that is we actually were in the middle of File Manager and how to copy files to a floppy drive or your A drive. We showed last week a little bit more, and I can show how to do that, how to copy it between from the same hard drive, and we'll talk about that too. But say I wanted to copy some multiple files to that drive, the A drive that's down there. So what we can do is open up a directory like A show, and we can hit an item on here like Ergo Demo, and just drag that over to A, and it'll copy it. If we want to do multiple files, what you do is you hold down the Control key, and you can hit over the one, and you can see they're highlighting multiple files, and then you can drag it over there. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is when you drag a file and copy it on the hard drive from directory to directory on your C drive, if you don't hold down the Control key when you move them over, it actually moves them as opposed to copying them. When you copy between a C drive, a hard drive, and a floppy drive, it automatically will just copy it. So you always have your original copy on your drive, and then it copies a version of it also to your A drive. If you want it to not copy it but actually move it, you hold down the Alt key. So if we hold down the Alt key and drag this over there, it actually will copy the files. It'll actually move them. They won't be there on your C drive anymore. So if you want to copy it, you hold down the Control key on the C drive. If you want to copy it copy it and keep the original on your C drive, you actually use the Control. And if you want to do it, take it to your A drive, you hold down the Alt key. I know that there will be a test on this, by the way. And we have all these hotkeys. We ought to make this available somehow. I don't know how we can do this. I've written down all the hotkeys for Windows, File Manager, and like documents, document software like the Word and actually editing programs and things like that. So now what we want to do is when we go to the hard drive here, you can see that it's called C drive, and if you go down here, you can see there's multiple drives between here. Now, multiple. Every time you hit over the top of there's multiple files inside each one of these directories. Let's say we want to make another directory that's called Steve, for example. What we do is we go up here to File, and there's one that says Create Directory. Now what this is, it's a little folder that'll be on your hard drive that you can keep all your information that you might want to have, like about a certain topic or whatever you might want to do there. We say Create Directory, and we can type in there Steve. And when we say OK, it'll automatically make a directory called Steve. If we arrow down here, you can see now there's a directory here called Steve. And we can put information in there. Now, we can double-click on one of these, and then what it does, it'll actually get real confusing. So what you want to do is you can actually have multiple drives shown on your screen at the same time. If we just double-click over the top of that C again, what it does is it shows two windows. And we can go up to here and go Windows and do Tile. And what it does is it puts one on top and one on the bottom. These are actually both the C drive or the hard drive, but we can have different directories. Like on the top one, we can be showing A show, and it shows the information in A show. And we can go down here to the bottom one and hit something like, Q time for QuickTime, and it shows what's in that directory. So we can copy from directory to directory and see what's going on. We can also go up here. Well, let's close this one first. And we can also hit over the top of A drive. Double-click right on top of the A. And what it does, it'll actually show what's on the A drive here. Ooh, hit right there. And now you can see that it's just that one file that we copied before. But it also gets kind of confusing because you have to keep going back and forth and back and forth. We can do this window and do Tile. And now we have the A drive. Well, I did that by mistake there. We'll close that one. And we'll show C. I've lost, my brain fell out there for a minute. Did you see? I don't know if you've noticed that or not. If we double click on here, it'll actually show both of them. Now we can see this is the A drive, and we can show the C drive. Now we'll just hit one time on this, and we'll have the drive here, the C, and we can take this up and down to see the full screen if we want to see what's going on. This is also where you can rename files. If we go over here and we'll type in, this is one that's called EUN, we can go ahead and rename files. Like this one's called A solid. If we go up here to File, you can see there's also Copy, Delete, Undelete, Rename. We go to Rename, it'll actually tell us the name of that directory, for example. And we can rename it to another directory that's called whatever, EUN1, like that. And what it does, you can see it changes the name of that directory. We can also change the names of files in the same exact way. The other thing that a lot of people want to know is how to search for files. What you always want to do is go to the top and hit C. Hit to the top of the C, and we can go to File and say Search, and a little window will come up, and it'll say, give us a little search for. We'll type in there and say we want to find Win, period, INI. And what it does, you can say start from the C directory, which is C:\\, and search all subdirectories. If we hit OK, what it does, it'll go through and show us a little window. It's searching every one of these directories on your hard drive, the C drive, and it's going to tell us everywhere that file, Win, period, INI, might be. So you can see there's actually 3 copies, which is not very efficient, but I always make a copy of all my system files and files that are important. Like, for example, there's like 4 different files you always want to make a copy of. I always make a directory that's called, save or Steve or files or whatever, and I save my files like autoexec.bat, that's autoexec.bat, your config.sys or config.sys, your win.ini file, and your system.ini file. And you save those in case when you load a software package and all of a sudden your computer doesn't work anymore, you always can copy those back in the same location, and then usually your computer will reboot. Because most programs, when you load a CD-ROM or something like that, it always changes around your autoexec file or your config.sys file or the win file, the system files. And this way you always have a backup of that information. It's always a great idea to do. And by the way, speaking of backup, one thing I always want to point out, and I have notes here, is make sure on people that buy new computers, a lot of computers that come out today, they don't come with disks. They come with everything pre-installed on the hard drive, and it tells you to buy 2 boxes of blank disks or formatted disks, and what it does is it tells you to back it all up. That's a good idea to do as soon as possible, because if anything ever happens by mistake, you might delete something, or you want to add a new driver for Windows because you got to, it's at the lower resolution, or you buy a new printer. A lot of times you buy a computer set up for no printer, so you need to add a new driver for a printer. You need to use those disks, and if you didn't back them up, you can't usually load the drivers. So always make a backup of all those disks as soon as possible. Usually, when you buy a new computer, it actually prompts you to do that in the very beginning, but it's a good idea to do right away. The other thing is to always have legal software. I know it's always everyone's favorite thing to do is to have every program in the entire world and to have every word processing program in every game, but it's actually illegal to make copies if you don't have the original software. So if you get caught, more companies nowadays get caught, but it's not a good idea to pirate software. If you do, you have to wear a little patch over your eye and wear that little pirate hat. But don't pirate software. That's my little soapbox thing, all right? Okay, we need to go back to the screen here. I'm sorry, I like to keep people on their toes as much as possible. But you can see there's files, so you can search for the files. Another thing that it's unbelievable how many people don't know this is like how much space is left on my hard drive. I just bought this new program and it says I need 20 megabytes of free space on my hard drive. How much space do I have free? The easiest way to do is go into File Manager, and on the bottom it'll actually say, down here it says C:, it'll say exactly what's free. Like I have 216 kilobytes free, which is actually 86 megabytes. And it'll tell me how big my hard drive is. This is a 331. It's really, well, it's supposed to be 320, but it's always a little bit bigger or smaller. It's never exactly 320. It says I have a 331. It actually shows you how many files are in the directory that I might have picked. Like, for example, if I hit A show, it'll tell me there's 5 files, and it's 1.2 megabytes of information in those 5 files right there. But automatically I know down here it says 86 megabytes free. So you always know if you have enough space to load a program. So I guess what we had to do is one other thing that I always like to show is under here to view. Automatically I have it set to sort by type, which is usually in alphabetical order of the type, like DLL, EXE, INI. If I go, and you can do this by name, and it'll be by the first letter. You can also view it by size. It'll show the biggest to the smallest, or the smallest to the biggest. And you can also do view by date. So it'll always have what's newest on the top and what's oldest on the bottom. That's real good if you're like downloading files on a bulletin board or something, and you want to know if it's the one you downloaded is newer than the one you had before. You can always do it by date and check those dates. It does show you all kinds of information. You can move this little bar over here, and it'll show you everything, the name, the size, the date, the time, and you can change those too. You can go to View, and you can say just by name, it'll just show the name, or you can view by all details, it'll show everything, or you can do it, pick them out and see what you want. The other thing that it shows you is, again, you can adjust the fonts, the size of the fonts that you might want to show there, so you can see so you can read what you're doing. If you get old like me and you lose your hair, you can't see these little fonts, so you need to make them bigger. You can also do backup, the antivirus, and double space information on here. I don't use double space in here, and if possible, this is another one of my little soapbox things here. If possible, I wouldn't recommend double space. And what it does is it actually makes your hard drive usually between 3/4 or twice the size than it already is. So if you have a 320 meg hard drive and you use double space, it usually makes it into like a 500 or 550 megabyte hard drive. The problem with that is if anything happens to any of those files, the double space files, you're toast. That's another one of those technical terms. So if you do use double space, I'd highly recommend using a tape backup and make up as many tape backups whenever you do anything important, because it'll be, if it's lost, it'll be gone and there's nothing you can do about it. So you can also go over here to one thing that I wanted to show was you can actually name a disk. If we want to name this C drive to whatever we want, like this one's called 320 megabyte. We can go up here to disk, we can do label, and it'll ask for a name like Steve's disk or hard drive. We'll just do Steve's HD. Hit OK, because you can't leave a space. You see that? So what I wanted to do, that's a good example. So we'll go to label, and we'll type in there Steve's HD. You can't leave a space in a name. You need to hit OK, and now you can see it says Steve's HD for Steve's hard drive. You can name it whatever you want. It's always a good idea to label your floppies also. When you label your floppy, that way if you have a bunch of them, they all look exactly the same, you can do a directory and actually give you a little note on what that information is or where it came from or whatever. You might want to leave your name so you know where people get it from and things like that. You're supposed to put labels on all your disks, but not everybody does, and not everybody puts all the information. Now, if you want to get out of here, you just go to exit, and it exits out of there. Now, one of the things that a lot of people left a message on the hotline is, how do I load a program? Well, I don't have any idea how I didn't show that last week, so I'll show it this week. It's actually pretty simple. If it's a Windows program, there's no problem. You just go up here, you go into the Program Manager, and you go up to File, and you can see right here there's one that's called Run. Now, usually 100% of the time, unless you pirated the software, you have the manual, and it'll tell you exactly how to load most programs. Most Microsoft programs and most Windows programs, the way you do it is you go to Run, and you type in right here A:"setup. And when you hit A:"setup, it'll start the program. A lot of the Lotus programs and other programs, they use the A:"install. But what happens if you don't know? There's an easy way to do it. You just go over here to Browse. And what Browse does, it actually allows you to look through your drives, like the A drive or whatever. I want to install a program that's on the CD-ROM. So I'm going to go down here and change this to D drive. That's my CD-ROM. And it'll show me all the executable files that are on my CD-ROM. And there happens to be one called Setup. So we just hit Setup and hit OK. And you can see it automatically fills in the blank. D:/setup.exe. Then we hit OK. And what it does, it initializes the setup. It's reading off of this over here. There's a CD-ROM. And it's spinning. You can see the light blinking. I can see the light blinking. And it's going through the initialization of the setup for this particular CD-ROM that's in here. The one I'm loading is one that I just bought. It's called Home Office Executive for Windows. And it says, yeah, thank you for purchasing, la-di-da, and everything else. You hit continue. It tells you, asks you where you want to put it. I usually use the default, whatever it might be, because that way, if it ever does anything by mistake, it always knows where to find itself. And you hit continue, and another window comes up, and it starts loading it. You can see it'll go all the way across here. Almost every CD-ROM has a little executable file that you have to load that puts it on your hard drive of your computer, and so that it doesn't have to load every single time from the CD-ROM. So what happens is this particular CD-ROM has some information it has to put on your hard drive. So when we come back, I'm going to take a quick break here. So stay tuned, and when we come back, this will be loaded.
Access Houston can teach you the ancient art of television production. Learn the camera technique, the audio technique, and the basics for recording and editing. If you wish to follow the path of television production and create television programs to be seen on the public access channel, call 524-7700. Remember, 524-7700. Call now and become a master of television production.
The air dances with the waters, which brings the rain that feeds the land, that is home to the animals. All life dances together.
In a world so connected, choosing one environmental cause can be hard. Earthshare is 40 environmental charities working together. You and your company can help by calling 1-800-MY-SHARE.
All life lives, or doesn't, together.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, this is the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves, I'm the host tonight. And what we're doing is we have a show entitled Nerds 102. It's actually a follow-up of last week's show, which was Nerds 101. We're taking it one step further and sort of filling in the blanks of what's going on and how to do fun things on Windows, how to make it a little bit faster, you know, how to make your life easier, I guess is what it is. And what I need to do, I guess, is, well, make sure I tell everyone the phone number for our hotline is 587-5369. That's 587-5369. Or you can leave us an email on, or at ace@macaw.com, ace@macaw.com. And one thing I do want to make sure that I forgot to mention is next week's show. Next week's show, we're going to have Apple on, and we're going to be talking about all the new Macintoshes. We actually are going to have, apparently, we're going to try to get one of the new 110 megahertz power Macs and all kinds of other fun stuff, and comparing apples with apples. Little joke there. Or apples and oranges, I guess, too. So make sure you watch next week's show. We're going to be showing all the new apples and how you can bring up the Windows. I think hopefully they'll show us how you can bring up Windows on the Apple. I know that sounds redundant or kind of strange there, but you can do it with PC, with the software that you can actually bring up Windows and PC software on your Macintosh. So make sure you watch next week's show. Okay, we'll go right to the screen here. Again, I like to make the cameraman hop around. And you can see our setup is successful, or succeeded, actually. It's kind of like Texas, isn't it? Succeeded? Oh, that's succeeded. Anyway, so we hit OK. And what it does, it automatically, on the screen, makes a little box, a little group that I like to make smaller. And it makes a little icon. So if we want to we just double click on this little executive here, little suitcase, or attache case, I guess it is. And it brings up the software, and we can hit register, and if we wanted to, because this is actually not free software, this is shareware, and you can fill in the blanks and fill that in, but we'll just exit out of that. And we can go to done, and what it does, it'll automatically load up the software. Now you can see this one, this, for example, has a whole bunch of different software packages that you can go in here and just highlight over what you want and actually download it. You can see this one because it says no money, so I guess it's freeware. And you can go over here, there's one that's called BizWiz, there's App Run, all kinds of different things, basketball statistics. And you can see this one, it actually is $15 it costs you if you want to download this one off of the CD-ROM or take it off the CD-ROM. You just send in the money and they'll usually send you a disc or a manual or an update of the software. So that's how you can load in a software program from a CD-ROM. Now the only difference between doing it on a CD-ROM or on a disk is when you go to File, you go to Run, you would type in /setup. Or you would go to Browse the same way you do it and find out what the executable file is, or read the manual and find out what you need to type in there. And 9 times out of 10, it'll actually make the icon in the little box or little group for you automatically. Now we can copy this. If we use this one all the time, we can actually copy this and drag this over. You don't hold on the Control key and drag this over down to our menu. And that way we have our copy up here. We can close this. And if we use it all the time, you can see that it's now in our menu here. So the other thing that I want to show is, say for instance, we don't like these icons. we can actually change the text that's about these icons, like File Manager. We might want to call it something different, or antivirus, or DOS prompt, or whatever. Let's say we don't want, it's called thing called Terminal. What that is, it's actually a little communications program that comes with Windows. Say we don't want it to be that. We can hit over the top of it and go up to File and go down here to Properties. And what it does is it shows you the description. We can type in there Communications. Communications. And then we can actually hit over the top of Change Icon. And what it does, if there was more icons, it would show us a whole list of different icons, or a picture's little icons here. We could pick the one we wanted to and hit OK, and then hit OK again. And you can see now, instead of Terminal, you probably can't see it because it's too small, it says Communications. Now some of these, like antivirus, for example, if you go down here to Properties and hit Change Icon, you can see there's a whole bunch of different icons for that program. So we can go in there and hit over the top of that one, hit OK, hit OK. You can see it automatically changes the icon for the antivirus, for the Microsoft Windows antivirus program. So you can change this all around, and you might want to name these things I use all the time or whatever. You can make different files to make it easier for you. You can modify this to whatever you might want to do. The other thing that you want to do is saving files. There's along the top here, there's some options. Under Option, there's Auto Arrange. If you turn that off, you can move these around, and you can have windows and your icons all over the place, which is kind of a mess. Or you can, if you go to Options and hit Auto Arrange, they just moved it off the screen there. If you hit Auto Arrange, it'll automatically arrange them in an order that looks a lot better. The other thing that I always use, most people do, is another option is Save Settings on Exit. And what that does, there's an option if, say for instance, you had this thing all goofed up or you didn't know what you're doing, and you get out of Windows, when you come back, it'll look up, it'll be just the same way it was the last time you exited, if you save that at Save Settings on Exit. If not, it comes back to whatever the first time you loaded Windows and how everything was set up. I like to always come back making it look exactly the same way it did. And so you can do that. The other thing, if you mess these all up, if you go down here to turn off Auto Arrange and move these all over the place, and you don't like using that Auto Arrange thing, you just go here to Windows, Arrange Icons. It'll automatically straighten it up for you. You can also set that, if these are too far apart, if you go under Control Panel, let's first set this to Auto Arrange. Control Panel, if you go down here to Desktop and double-click on that, there are some settings down here, icon spacings. You can adjust this. You can play around with these numbers. This is set to 75. If you set it to less, the icons will be closer together or further apart. You can wrap titles. If not, it'll actually make a real long title. So you can change those. You can actually change a lot of different things on here. You can change the cursor blinking, or we talked about this last week, the screensaver, if you want to set this to something else other than the marquee, like blank screen, flying windows, Starfield, or whatever you want to do. The other thing that I said last week, but I want to make sure everybody knows, is the wallpaper. I usually set that to none. And what that actually does, it actually saves Windows resources. The more things you keep open that's on the desktop, the less Windows resources you have to load more programs. The easiest way to find out how much resources you have left is go up here under Program Manager, and you go to Help. When you hit Help, there's an About Program Manager. What this does, it actually tells you all kinds of information, like who this product is licensed to, Steve Reeves. We're in 386 enhanced mode. How much memory we have, I have 36 megabytes free because I have 20 megabytes of RAM in here, and I also made a permanent swap file. And it also says Systems Resources, 77%. My rule of thumb is never, ever go below 50%. If it's less than 50%, if you get down to like 30% in the resources, I would suggest get out of Windows and reboot your computer and start over, because what happens is a lot of times when you load up a word processing program and you have 6 billion different fonts loaded, it takes up resource space. That's another little tip. Try to only load as many fonts as you use. It's really fun to get a CD-ROM with like 6 billion different text fonts, and you load up every font that's on the CD-ROM and look at it one time, and then never look at it again. All these really wild Flintstone fonts and everything else. Only load the fonts that you need, and you delete the ones you don't use all the time. And because what happens is, when you get down below below 50%, I find the computer actually slows down a little bit. That slows down a little bit. And also, you have more problems with lockups and things like that. So I usually try to keep it above 50%. When you first log into Windows and you go there, it's always about 80, between 72 and 80%, depending on what you have loaded. And so that's usually, you never have 100%. It's never at 100%. So you just hit OK, and it actually shows you what's going on. What you can do is if you go here to Control Panel, there's different things to set things up. For example, like I showed last week, was the virtual memory. You can always set this up. I usually try to make this a permanent swap file. It usually defaults to none or temporary. If you set that up to permanent swap file, it will speed up your system. And you can change that by hitting this, and it goes through here and change it to, it's automatically, like I said, a temporary. You want to change it to a permanent. You pull that down, and usually use the default or whatever is available there. But like I said last week, the rule of thumb is twice the amount of RAM you have in your system, up to 20 megabytes. Don't make it much bigger than 20 megabytes unless your system specifically asks for that. All right? Now, another thing that a lot of people will ask, say for instance you have a support call. You will need to find out what, you call in and they ask you, what is your auto-exec file? Well, first of all, you need to know what an auto-exec file is. What an auto-exec file is a file that is your startup system, your startup file for your system. It tells you what drivers to load, like that you have a CD-ROM, that you might have a tape backup, that you have a certain amount of buffers and files and everything set, all your expanded memory manager and all that. What I usually do is under Notepad, you can go under Notepad. Say, for instance, you want to load up a file. We can go under Notepad, double-click on there, hit File, and hit Open. File, Open. And it defaults to a TXT file. Well, since it's a batch file, you can go down there and you can just hit star or asterisk, period, BAT. What that'll do, it'll show, because it's an asterisk, it'll show everything that ends with BAT, because it's an auto-exec, period, BAT file. And we can go to the root directory. To change the directories under here, you just double-click on the C drive, and it shows you all the directories here, just like it did in the file manager. And here it is, right here, auto-exec, period, BAT. Hit over the top of that, hit OK, and it comes up automatically. Now, a lot of times when you call in for support, it'll ask you, well, what does it say here, and what drivers are loaded, and everything else. Or they might even ask you to fax this. So what you can do is you can usually just, if you need to, you can write it down, or you can print it out to your printer, and then you can either tell them what it says, or you can fax it to them, or send it to them, or whatever you want to do. Another file they always ask about is your config.sys file. And what that is, since it has SYS at the end, we can say asterisk, period, SYS. Hit enter, and there it is right there. If you don't remember the name of the file or what it ends with, you can go down to the bottom here, and it automatically defaults to TXT. You can say every file, all files, and it'll show all the files there. And then you can arrow down to this, and just click over the top of the one you want, and hit OK, or you can just double-click over the top of it. And it shows you the config.sys file. Now, I do it under Notebook, but there's actually a program that a lot of people don't even know comes with Windows. We just double-click out of that, and it's called sysedit. If you double-click over the top of sysedit, it will show you all the files that are usually important for Windows. The system INI file, the win INI file, the config.sys, and the autoexec. Now, you can go in there and just print these out or change them or modify them, whatever you might want to do. But the strange thing about this program is it doesn't come when you load Windows. There's not an icon for it. So what I'm going to do is show you how to make an icon for a file or a program that's not in Windows. So say we want to add, it's already there, but we'll add another one down here. We'll go up here and hit File, and we'll say New. There's two options, Program Group and Program Item. Program Group would be this whole entire box. Program Item would be one of these little icons here. We want to say Program Item. You hit OK, and then it asks you for a description. Now you can type in there system or sysedit, or whatever you might want to do. We'll say system info. System info. And since I don't remember what the name of the file is, you can just go over and hit this Browse again. Hit Browse. And I know that it's in the Windows directory, so it always defaults to the C:\Windows. We can go down here and arrow this down here and find sysedit. Where am I here? Sysedit. Well, I'm sorry. Where is it here? Sysedit. So what I need to do is, if I forget where it is, I can actually do a search for sysedit. What I did was I have one here. We'll just go over here and say Properties, and you can see it's in the Windows System directory. We couldn't find it. So what I need to do is go here to File, New, and we'll say that, Open, and we'll say Browse. And since it's under the Windows Systems directory, we'll hit it over the top of that. And now, if you go down here, you can see there's System Edit. See, if you forget where you are, you can always you can do the Browse. Or we could have went into File Manager and say, search for that file. So what I need to do is hit over the top of that, hit OK. Since I got out of that, I have to type this in, System Info, and hit OK. But first I want to change the system icon. You can see there's two options for icons for that. We'll just hit the default. Hit OK, and boom. It automatically makes an icon for you, the one that you picked, and says System Info. Now if we double-click over the top of that, it does exactly the same, automatically brings it up. So if you have some program that doesn't come with an icon, it'll actually tell you no icon found, and it'll give you an option for whatever it might be there. Like for example, if we go over to the top of this one, and we'll go to Properties of this one, and you can say Change Icon. You can see there's this one, but a little notepad. But there'd be a whole list of really strange-looking fingers and arrows, and there's actually icons you can make up and change whatever you might want to do. So we'll just do it like that and go to this. And I guess the one thing I want to make sure everybody knows, there are users groups that have meetings all the time. One is HalPC, which is here in Houston, and the phone number is 623-4425. And there's HOG, which is the Apple users group, which is 522-2199. And there's all kinds of people you can talk to about all this stuff, but we'll have more shows on Windows and how to make your computer better and faster and how to make things work. But I guess we're now going to have to wrap this up. I got millions of things to talk about, and we've run out of time again. So make sure you watch next week's show, which is on Apple and the Macintoshes and all kinds of new fun stuff coming out. But I guess that's it, so we'll see you next week.